Hello, everyone, and I hope everyone is having a good day today. Yesterday was a pretty active day across the southeast. Saw multiple rounds of storms for some areas and some damaging wind gusts, and even some small hail was seen across the southeast. But nothing serious, as I had mentioned. Um, we did see some um, we did see some tornado warnings, kind of sort of south of Washington, D.C., and even some near Pittsburgh. As that shortwave sort of moved eastward across the area. So kind of overperforming day across the Mid-Atlantic and sort of northern Appalachians here. But today we have a new risk here, and again for the southeast and through the Ohio Valley here. Pretty interesting looking slight risk here. But I will be talking about mainly the Ohio Valley for today, but I will be mentioning southeast some as well in this video. But mainly my main focus will be in the Ohio Valley, as I think the threats up there could be a little bit more um, widespread. So, but here is our sort of slight risk for today. We have that slight risk all the way up pretty close to Buffalo here, just sort of outside to the southeast of Buffalo. Much of central PA, also western PA, including Pittsburgh. All of West Virginia is in the slight risk now. We have the coal fields, parts of western Virginia, North Carolina, and eastern Tennessee. Um, Kind of slim sliver of that slight risk there, and then we have that marginal sort of around the slight risk, and then that slight risk in the south: Charlotte, Raleigh, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Columbia, Savannah, Atlanta, Chattanooga, Nashville, all have the possibility for some strong to severe thunderstorms. Here's our tornado risk today, and we have that 2% risk from Huntington, Charleston, the I-64 corridor, all the way up to really Rochester, New York. Um, wouldn't be shocked to see a few tornado warnings in this 2% risk, especially further north near Pittsburgh, sort of near the Erie area, probably south of Erie, Youngstown, Ohio, maybe up through southern New York. I think this area through here, maybe even Wheeling, West Virginia. This little kind of area here may see the best chance, but really anywhere in this 2% risk, you could see a isolated tornado, and we have that 2% risk down south as well. Here's our wind damaging wind threat, and we see that broad 15% risk, really where that slight risk was. Mainly a damaging wind threat across the southeast and the Ohio Valley. That is the main threat really for today, and then we could see some very small hail possible. Um, Dime, even penny sized hail would be out of the question across the Ohio Valley. So again, here's that risk area today. Pretty broad area covering many locations. Take sort of like a look at a surface map here, and we can see our sort of closed low, sort of over the Great Lakes as of this morning. And this will be sort of moving off to the east, northeast, east northeast, and this will bring this sort of cold front dragging through Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, slowly eastward. So that's going to be our sort of severe weather producer for the Ohio Valley. We could also see some possible flash flooding, especially up north, in PA and New York. Down south, the uh, the risk is mainly associated with the convection already down south, in Mississippi, Alabama. But new convection should be able to form as daylight heating takes place and throughout the afternoon across the Memphis, Nashville, and sort of move eastward at that point. Um, the risk in like North Carolina, South Carolina, we'll have to be watching sort of what's happening in Alabama, Georgia, and that activity should sort of move its way up northeastward. But yeah, this is sort of what we're dealing with. Kind of a very messy East Coast setup here. Um, Lots of just stormy weather and severe weather. So heart of summer sort of activity for sure. Here's our surface observations here, and I'm going to be sort of focusing on um, much of PA up through here, and much of West Virginia, Kentucky, Eastern or Western Virginia, excuse me. But we can see some mid 60s across PA here. Dew points also in mid 60s. If we go further south, low 70s kind of creeping in through central West Virginia, southern Ohio, northern Kentucky. And that sort of persists throughout most of the area here, upper 60s, mid 60 dew points. So let's look here. So the ARRR is doing a fairly good job um, with the temperatures. We have those sort of low 70s across central West Virginia, southern Ohio, and northern Kentucky. Maybe the 70s are a little too far up north where Wheeling should be 71 compared ARRR says at this time, and it's 69 degrees. So ARRR is a touch or two warmer up north, but doing fairly well sort of on the southern part here. Um, I will sort of look at the southeast as well. Just briefly, we have sort of a mid upper 70s, low 70 dew points for pretty much of everywhere, and then that seems to be the case here, mid 70s here across North Carolina, South Carolina here. If we look at our dew points, we should have mid 60s across the Ohio Valley, and we do. I can save it there. We have the mid 60s here. Looks pretty good. Look at it again. Yeah, HRR doing fairly good as well. Maybe overdoing some of the dew points by a degree or two in some locations, but overall has a good understanding of what's going on. And down south, we do have those sort of upper 60, low 70 dew points as well. So HRR so far has a pretty decent handle on surface observations right now. I would like to look at the sort of reflectivity and some showers and maybe some convection near Cleveland. Um, yeah, showers. Nothing looking too convective up there, and then some showers down through western Kentucky, and we can see that through here. So Bar is doing fairly well with the reflectivity output here, which is good to know. So this setup today is definitely sort of a I wouldn't say weird one, but it's definitely interesting throughout the really the Ohio Valley. Down south here, sort of southern West Virginia, down through coal fields of Kentucky, even parts of eastern Tennessee. The forcing through here, pretty much I-64 south, is going to be very, very limited. Even sort of up through here near Pittsburgh, between Charleston, but the forcing is going to be very limited. While that upper level low is over the Great Lakes, northern Great Lakes, so um, the forcing isn't going to be there. However, with the instability in the shear we'll have, especially um, on this western side of the slight risk, we should have a chance for a quick spin up or two. Um, but as we sort of go on throughout the day here, I'm going to look at our 500 millibar winds And focus on that tornado risk area. So this is around sort of 10 a.m. This morning here. Um, convection, let's see here. Convection should begin to sort of sprout by like 3, 4 o'clock. Even probably a little bit earlier across central Ohio. So let's take that into account and sort of move on here. And this is around 3 o'clock. Um, sorry, actually 1 o'clock here, and we can see under our sort of tornado risk area, which is right through here. Um, we can see, especially wheeling northward up to like Buffalo and part Pittsburgh, even including Pittsburgh, Youngstown. We can see like 40 to 50 knot winds over 500 millibar level. Definitely supportive enough for potential um, turning in the winds and the speed in the winds as well. At that level will help with the turning. So we move on throughout the afternoon here and into the evening as a severe threat is underway. We see a good chunk of around 40 knots, 45 knot winds at the 500 millibar level in that tornado risk, which will be sufficient enough to sort of help maybe produce that isolated tornado. But our 500 millibar winds are in place, and it's also sort of important to note by sort of evening, late afternoon to early evening, our trough here becomes sort of neutrally tilted. It's not really negative or positive, and that could sort of potentially um, make the area have a few more stronger storms than maybe if it were positively tilted. So something to keep in mind, something I've noticed, it may not have, it probably won't have much of an impact in the setup today, but something to keep in mind for sure. And we can see sort of how it was sort of oriented, southwest to northeast, and as we move on throughout the day, that sort of straightens out here. And then as we go throughout the evening, those winds sort of will stick around over that risk area, but we do have some nice mid-level sort of speeds here for that tornado risk. Look at our low-level jet here at 50 millibar winds, and by 2 o'clock we can see along that cold front that sort of increase in our low-level winds around 30, 35 knots. So this is when convection should be about to begin here and start. By 4 o'clock we can see around 35 knots approaching Wheeling, Pittsburgh, up in Youngstown now, and Erie at this time. And as we move on throughout the evening here, that sort of moves northeastward, overlapping fairly well, especially near Buffalo, Erie, just north of Pittsburgh, including probably Youngstown, Ohio as well, maybe even Wheeling, West Virginia. Good overlap in our 850 millibar winds and our 500 millibar winds. And we can see our winds sort of coming out of the southwest here. And then if we look at our 500 millibar winds, if it will load, also coming out of the southwest. But yes, good overlap of our 500 millibar and 850 millibar winds over that 2% risk. Uh, may cause a quick spin up, especially if a storm can get organized well enough. There is sort of maybe an issue with the setup across in the northern Ohio Valley, and I will get into that actually now. So I'm going to be looking at our surface-based CAPE here. This is an HRR model. by 1 p.m. here. The issue for today's setup is this lack of instability. Um, we do have pockets of around 1500 to maybe 1250 to 1500 joules per kilogram. That is definitely sufficient enough to support updraft and support um, development of thunderstorms and even keep them sort of strengthened and alive for a while. Um, but this is when storms are or this is when storms are going to be sort of popping up, beginning to across central Ohio. And it has plenty of just enough Cape to really work with. As we move on throughout the evening, the Cape sort of builds across sort of central PA here, 1500, 2000 joules, and also builds across sort of central Ohio Valley where 1250 to 1500 joules per kilogram is possible. And that sort of continues to uptrend. Where pockets of 2000 joules per kilogram are likely by evening across sort of the Ohio Valley region here. And again, sort of across central PA, that instability is also um, sufficient enough. So, surface-based cape is, or our instability slash fuel, not great. It's not amazing, and it may just sort of hinder the overall threat, especially that tornado threat. Um, so yeah, let's look at our sort of our helicity here, energy helicity, and we can see sort of that potential isolated threat for a quick spin up, sort of north of Wheeling and Pittsburgh. It's on south of Erie, sort of in this general area here, north eastern Ohio, western PA. So definitely have to watch that. This is early afternoon, so we move on throughout the day. Um, we can see even an isolated threat across southern Ohio, but even across sort of west central PA as well, sort of the Pittsburgh region and the north eastward. So our, not amazing, not amazing helicities. These are actually fairly low. So, um, but again, it does sort of highlight that isolated tornado risk, in this general sort of area. Um, Across really from Parkersburg up through the Buffalo area. So I don't. Maybe the tornado risk is probably going to be greatest over this sort of central western part here, um, as it has more instability to sort of work with. So sort of east of Pittsburgh, and then east of Buffalo. So greatest tornado threat will be sort of situated um, around the Pittsburgh region, Wheeling, Youngstown, Parkersburg, up through southern New York, much of central PA as well. Um, Best tornado threat there. I think the Pittsburgh region, central PA, has the better overall winds and has enough instability to definitely produce an isolated tornado or two. So if I was targeting an area, it'd probably be um, the central PA region, into like the western central PA region. So let's look at our sort of reflectivity here, and we did see the sun earlier, but this is around 1 o'clock, and we can see sort of that cold front along the Ohio Valley down through the mid south start to produce some isolated convection here, and to move on another hour or two here, take a sounding sort of in north central PA here, and northwestern PA, I should say, and we have a fairly skinny cape. Um, Fairly skinny cape. It does get. We do have some mid-level sort of dryness going on here, which would sort of help with thunderstorms. And we do have nearly 2,000 surface cape and over 1,000 mixed layer cape. Our three cape is also 151, well over the 100 sort of threshold I look for. And then perceptible water, it's not too high, but we do have solid SRH values. Nothing amazing, but definitely enough to sort of get the attention some. And we can sort of see this if we look between our 0 and 3 kilometers. We see that sort of right hand turn that we look for, but it's nothing that looks too crazy. Um, so let's continue to sort of move forward here. Oops. According to here, let me I will sort of adjust this here so that we get a better view. Oh, but yeah, as we move on here, by about 2 or 3 o'clock, the HRR is actually depicting some um, fairly organized potential supercells or organized thunderstorms here across the north western PA here, south of Erie, sort of far north of Pittsburgh. Um, Again, sort of hinting at that tornado risk across the PA regions of northwestern PA into even southern New York here soon. As the model run will continue, but take a sort of sounding southern New York out ahead of these storms, and we see our cape is not as impressive. We do have enough solid 3 cape, but um, not as impressive as it is further south in PA. So as we move on throughout the evening here, uh, we can see our main batch of weather, severe weather seems to be southern New York and parts of west central PA, where that tornado threat will sort of begin in the evening time. Also, we can see some isolated convection across the DMV region, especially further west. And then across Ohio and then Kentucky, um, we do see some convection wanting to sort of start. Yeah, and then by about 7, 8 o'clock, we can see across Ohio and the coal fields here in eastern Ohio, we can see that sort of convection begin to start. And if we take a sounding, let's back it up an hour here, take a sounding near sort of the Huntington region. We see an elongated photograph, and we see some nice cape, nice dry sort of 3 kilometer region there, but cape seems fairly supportive enough for damaging wind gust, maybe even a quick spin up. Um, our surface, the 3 kilometer SRH values are um, fairly decent enough to look at, and we do have some slight turning in the winds, but nothing serious. Do sort of have some right, you can see that turning sort of between the 0 and 3, that sort of right curve, but nothing, again, nothing too serious. And as we move on throughout the evening, um, a small hail event and gusty wind event is possible. So the Ohio Valley is mostly going to be a damaging wind threats and isolated tornado threats. Your better tornado threat is going to be across north, really north of Pittsburgh, in between Buffalo. But down south of Pittsburgh can easily see a quick spin up or two, especially in the evening throughout the night. Central and western PA here and southern New York seem to be the best area for a spin up, with the better overlapping in our winds and instability being in place. So I quickly want to sort of touch base on the southeast here. Look at our sort of future radar here, and we could just mainly see over Alabama here in Georgia by early afternoon. Sort of the energy we'll have to be looking at further eastward and into South Carolina, North Carolina. As we move on throughout the day, that sort of energy does get moved eastward. Some isolated convection does want to sort of pop up across South Carolina, southern North Carolina. And the main event really sort of begins to congeal together by evening across central South Carolina, central Georgia, and that sort of moves across South Carolina overnight. So a damaging wind threat is really the only sort of thing I can see across the southeast. If we take a sounding here, sort of in central South Carolina, just to kind of get an idea here, we'll go an hour. Um, we do have we have some nice cape here. We do have some sin that will have to be sort of broke through, but uh, should have enough sort of instability in place to kind of break through that clearing today. But SRH values, shear values looking pretty good, but with just the lack of sort of instability, it is going to sort of dampen some of the risk across that region. And speaking of instability, we may as well sort of have a peek at it here. As we move on throughout the afternoon, this is a sort of early afternoon, and as we move on throughout the evening here, we can see a sort of that instability, that cape sort of just spotty, 1500, 2000 joules per kilogram, really across the southeast, and that sort of just sort of fizzles out by daylight, as daylight sort of sets. So southeast is just sort of your generalized summer thunderstorm event where we'll have a maybe potentially multiple rounds of strong to severe storms. Um, I think central South Carolina, central Georgia is your best bet for severe winds. However, that risk can definitely persist overnight into North Carolina and coastal South Carolina. But again, the main topic today was the Ohio Valley and that sort of isolated tornado risk and that damaging wind and small hail risk. But active day today, stay weather aware. It seems to, our day two outlook here, it seems to quiet down some. We do have a marginal risk for central NC, central South Carolina, and the coastal regions. Don't think I'll have to make a video on that. It's just mainly a damaging wind threat again, um, where we have that 5% risk in place. So, just an isolated event tomorrow. Probably won't have a video on that. But everyone just stay weather aware today, especially in the Ohio Valley. Stay in tune. Watch for tornado warnings, and I hope everyone has a great day. I will talk to you guys later.